Hi, I'm Kish Davis, and the young adult novel that I chose to use is called Color Me In by Natasha Diaz. And the project around this novel is titled Heritage Autobiography Project. I teach seventh grade English language arts. And before we get started, I'd like to talk about the trade books that I use for my classroom. The trade books and resources I mainly use is the Pearson textbook that the school has adopted. And I love this book. It has an array of multicultural short stories, poems, dramas. It even has articles in it. And what I like about it is that for a lot of the stories, majority of the stories, they're going to have videos, podcasts, and other materials that relate to the story. So it's a lot of support. And what I have observed with young adult novels in my classroom, these novels are becoming more and more popular for my students. And the novels that where the characters are struggling with identity and they are coming of age, like quinceañeras or sweet 16s or bar mitzvahs, things like that, that's really popular in the students like those too. And I think that the students see themselves in these stories. A summary of the novel Color Me In by Natasha Diaz. All right, so the main character, Nevaeh Livitz, has a perfect life in New York in the suburbs. She has a black mom and she has a Jewish father. And she doesn't even know that she's biracial until her parents break up. And that's when she realizes that she's mixed. She is forced to stay with her mother in Harlem, which is all black area, and she's not used to that. Unfortunately, her cousins that's around her age do not accept her right away. They look at her really light toned skin, and they say that she has white girl hair because it's heavy, and when she takes her ponytail down, it falls. And so they have a problem accepting her. They say that she does not understand what they're going through, the injustices that they go through. And Nevaeh sees a lot of injustices in this particular neighborhood. She is 16. She wants to have a sweet 16 party. Speaking of sweet 16 party, her father wants her to also get to know his side of the family. So she goes there and she finds out that she's not good enough. She's not white enough. So she's that contrast that she has from the beginning of the novel when everything was perfect till now, and that's a problem for her. She's not used to speaking up. She never had to speak up. She does a lot of journal writing when she has problems. She writes it, so her voice is in her writing. Um, to make matters worse, her father wants to throw her a bar mitzvah, and she wanted a sweet 16 party, but her father wants to throw her a bar mitzvah. And this is going to be a problem because she worries about what the black side of her family will think about this. Um, Other than that, she eventually, by the end of the book, finds her voice through her best friend Stevie, helps her to center herself and find her strength and her voice. And things get better for her without saying too much. This book is a page turner. I think that tweens and teens will understand of their struggle to fit into her peer groups and her school and her home. They will relate to her, and they will be excited to follow her journey throughout the book and to the end. My personal response, I like this book because it showed the struggle of a teenager trying to fit into society. So it's like character versus society. When I look at the seventh graders that I teach, I see a similar situation with them. The main character, Nevaeh, is trying to fit in with her own family and is having a hard time being accepted. So it doesn't matter if you're biracial and you're having a problem fitting in with your family, or if you are just a teenager at a middle school fitting in, having a hard time fitting in with your peers. It's all the same. It's all about fitting in and being accepted. This book is a great example for my students on how to deal with the issue of not fitting in and how to overcome feeling bad about yourself because of it, because it's not your fault. Justification for using Color Me In. So the book Color Me In by Natasha Diaz applies to my seventh graders because the main character, Nevaeh, is struggling with her biracial identity. She's too white for her black side and she's too black for her white side. This is the same thing I see going on with my students all of the time. It's not always race. It doesn't have to be that. It can be that they don't dress cool enough or they're in a relationship and one, the person thinks that they're not moving fast enough. They don't want to hold hands. They don't want to kiss or something like that. So this being accepted and fitting in it's a common theme. It's a common thread. And by reading this novel, my students can connect to a character who is experiencing similar issues as them. And they can also see how this character navigates through these issues and successfully comes to the other side of peace. What would students gain from this book? From reading this novel, my students would gain insights on Nevaeh's struggle and maybe connect that to their own struggle. My students can also gain confidence knowing that they are not the only ones going through this fitting in issue. The actual project. So the project that I chose to do around this book is titled Multicultural Autobiography. The objection. The objective. Write your autobiography focusing on at least two different cultures in your family. Interview family members about the different heritage. Format. This is a very flexible format. It can be in the form of a brochure, flyer, poster, slideshow presentation. It does need to be in some type of written form with visuals. Focusing on the following. So the following needs to be focused on. If the words are in bold, you for sure need to talk about these things in your project. You do need to talk about four of them. Three things are must do. Here we go. So we have traditions. You can focus on language. You can talk about art, music, culture traits, foods, holidays, beliefs, Independence Day, coming of age celebrations. But if it's bold, tradition, foods, and beliefs, you have to have them in your project. You do have to pick another one or two also. Connection to the novel. Choose one of the following points. When I say points, I mean one of these focus points up here. Choose one of the following focus points above and compare your experience to how Nevaeh experienced it. So for instance, food scene. There was a food scene in the book where she did not like the way something smelled and what something looked like, and she wasn't used to having it. So if you've experienced something like that, or you can talk about it. There was a church scene in the book. So that's religion. There was there was that conflict in celebration. Do I do a sweet 16 party or do I do a bar mitzvah? So all of these things, pick one point, and I want you to compare your experience with Nevaeh's experience in the book. Visuals. We need 5 or more visuals in this project. So it can be anything as long as it relates to you and your heritage or Nevaeh and her heritage. You can do maps, diagrams, pictures of foods, flags, currencies that's related to your the nationality that you are, celebrations, family members, pictures of your family. It can be any of those. And here's the rubric. So we have a point system. 5 is the highest points that you can get, and 0 is the lowest point you can get. We're going to be looking at visuals, focus points. Those are the 3 bolded things that you had to do, the food, tradition, and beliefs, and then the other ones. Heritage would be looked at. Now, I would like for you to have at least try to find 2 different heritages or nationalities within your family. If you cannot and you just have a pure 100% breed of whatever you are, then fine, let me know. That's why I have an asterisk right here by the word heritage, because if you cannot find but one type of nationality in your family, then your project is just going to be about a one nationality. But if you happen to have different types of heritage and nationalities throughout your family, I would love for you to at least write 2. Format. The format is flexible. It can be whatever, but it does need to be clear and it needs to be organized. It needs to be professional and creative. Connection to the novel. Make at least one comparison to an experience that you've had and compare it to Nevaeh's. Three web-based links. So the first link is from it's from a site called Latinos in Kitlit, and it is basically talks about police brutality. So a theme in this book is police brutality. That what I could do with that is, since that's been happening currently with the George Floyd's death, with the knee to his neck, and the topic of defunding the police, this is a hot topic, and students could create signs or posters of one side or the other about how they feel and where they stand, and support their reasons to support their reasons as far as like not defunding police, or be fair, and police shouldn't hurt other people, things like that. And they can create a sign of their position and evidence to back up their position. Another theme within this book is friendship. Nevaeh has a very close friend named Stevie who helps her get through a lot of her problems. So I was thinking with this theme that students could write a paper or essay or narrative and talk about the importance of friendship and how it makes a difference in one's life. And it can be a narrative, personal narrative, or it can actually be an expository essay. So either way it goes, they will be writing about that. And the last web-based link, the theme is about bullying. So I was thinking a way that I could apply that to the story is to have students create a PSA against bullying. And maybe they could talk about the ways to deal with bullying where both parties feel heard and safe. Two teaks that relates to this project and this story. 7.5E, make connections to personal experiences, ideas, and other texts in society. So this teak is important because it allows the students to make connections between the characters in the book, Color Me In, and their own personal experiences. The next teak, 7.6H, respond orally or in writing with appropriate register, vocabulary, tone, and or voice. Okay, so teak 7.6H links to the novel because it encourages the students to discover the author's attitude through her writing in the form of tone. The students will have to pay attention to word choice and how characters respond to situations and events. Students will have to use examples from the text to support their choices. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing applications. So in Beach's book, on page 121, he talked about read aloud protocols. So for reading, I said students will take turns reading a chapter out in small groups. Students will stop and discuss answers to the guided questions. For listening, Beach on page 123 talked about close reading, reading something over and over until you find and figure out what it is you need or you're looking for. So it's okay to read a chapter more than once. It's okay to read a child's book, a children's book over and over and over, because you pick up more things once you do the close reading. So for listening, students will listen to a chapter of Color Me In by the teacher and analyze the author's tone based on word choice. They will also listen to each other, share their findings. And for speaking, on page 165, Beach talks about the spoken word. So for speaking, I have, once students figure out the tone of the chapter, they will share their responses with their peers. And the last one is writing. On page 119, in Beach book, he talked about previewing. So for writing, I have in the beginning, the students would do a quick write about a time when they or someone they knew struggled to fit in with a group of friends or family or even strangers. And they were doing quick writes throughout this entire novel study. 3 supplemental resources that can be linked to this book. The first one I have is a poem. It is called We All Return to the place where we were born. We all return to the place where we were born, by Oscar Gonzalez. And so this relates to the novel. This poem is about the narrator becoming familiar with a place and its heritage that he's never been before. and he's heard stories from his parents about it, and he wishes to go there one day. This connects to the novel Color Me In because main character Nevaeh didn't know either of her sides, the black side or her Jewish side, until her parents broke up. And now she's just like this person in this poem trying to get back to her heritage, trying to picture what it's like. The second supplemental resource is a painting. This painting is by David Polfus, and it's about it's in a neighborhood, predominantly black neighborhood, and they're holding signs up, "Stop Killing," and history. And if you can see right here, you have someone that's above everybody else. It looks like someone's on a cross, like being crucified, and he has chains. And then you have police, and you have police here. And so I would like for students to interpret, observe, and interpret this painting. This connects to the novel because the main character, Nevaeh, experienced and witnessed lots of injustices when she moved to her mom's side of the family. And this changed her, and it gave her insight on what really goes on in the world. The last supplemental resource is a video. It's a video of Marley Diaz. She's a teenager, and she stands for justice. She stood up for justice. This video will help students to connect to the novel by hearing from Marley Diaz speak out about racial injustice. And Marley, we've studied Marley before. She, at the age of 10, she realized that she didn't have any books of little girls who looked like her. So she launched a campaign to get more books of multicultural books into her classroom. I interviewed an eighth grader named Macy Davis who goes to Howard Junior High. Macy, the question was on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being yes, I totally fit in, and 1 being nope, I don't fit in at all. I wanted her to rate how she fits in with her friends. She gave herself a 4, and she basically said she's grown up with her friends. They know each other very well. She hang out with students who are just like her, so she doesn't have a problem fitting in. The next question, in the novel Color Me In, Nevaeh, who's biracial, has a hard time fitting in with her black side of the family and her white side. What do you think about this? Macy said, I don't think that race should matter, ever. Family is family. It means to say not white enough. So you shouldn't say you're not white enough. You shouldn't say you're too black. It's not Nevaeh's fault, she said, that she's mixed with different races. People need to really get a grip. And the last question I asked her, is fitting in a real issue with teens, or is this something that grown-ups are making up? She says fitting in can be a problem depending on who you are, what your tolerance level is. She says, I'm a nice person. I hang around nice people, but some girls want you to dress a certain way, act a certain way, and if you don't, then they get angry with you. Teacher interview. I interviewed Nicole Dunn, a 7th grade teacher at Finley Junior High. Question, how many and what type of books are in your library? Nicole says she has 123 to 150, and there are a mixture of biographies, dystopia, fantasy fiction, poetry, humor, and picture books. Next question, how do you select textbooks to teach your students? And she says, I currently use the textbook provided by the school, Pearson. It has lots of multicultural short stories, poetry, stories of the students with disabilities. And she says, I feel good using this book because they have videos, podcasts to support the stories. Question, tell me about what sustained reading looks like in your class. She says sustained reading is the last 10 minutes of class Monday through Friday. And I also asked her, how long is your instruction on reading? She said reading instruction is done after the bell ringer and it lasts about 20 to 30 minutes. Last question for her, how has things changed for you and your students since the pandemic? She says, I teach both in person and virtual, so I am not sure that my students who are online are actually doing their independent reading. Librarian interview. This Her name is Shauna Cunningham, and she is at Finley Junior High. Question: do you order young adult books for your library? If so, how do you decide which ones to get? Yes, she said, I order young adult books for my library. I keep current with the American Library Association, and they are always listing books based on the country's most prestigious awards in children's and young adult literature. Question: how do you feature new books and award-winning titles? She says, I display them and add them to a collection in Destiny Discover and put them in topic buckets around the library labeled new books. Question: have you seen any trends in circulation? She says they all love graphic novels and human fiction. They don't do a lot of traditional nonfiction. Question for the librarian: what books do students seem to check out the most? Young adult novels and mangas. Question, last question. Have you seen an increase or decrease in students checking out books this year? A decrease, because I've limited their checkout to one per student instead of three. We have to quarantine books after they're returned. Research support. So I use Burke on page 217. Classroom discussions and debates happen throughout the reading of the novel Color Me In. And so according to Burke's, he said during exploratory talk, students build on each other's ideas, actually creating thoughts that no one in the group had previously conceived. So that is me supporting classroom discussions and debates in my class. And Beach also on page 119 talked about activating memories. So in the beginning of reading this novel, the students did a quick write activity about a time that they didn't fit into a group or they knew someone who didn't fit in. And what Beach says about this is by activating related memories and experiences before reading the text, students will be able to connect new information. And the last research support is from it's one of the, I think it was Module 3 article, and it was titled Key Literacy Component Writing. And the author encourages teachers to connect writing to reading. So in Color Me In, when we did the novel, I made sure that the students did quick writes throughout our reading to ensure that they have a connection to the novel and they're linking reading and writing. Biography. That's it.